Resurrection is impossible. Perhaps that's your objection to the Christian message. People don't just come back from the dead. And I get why you would say that. I have viewed the lifeless bodies of loved ones between their death and burial. As a pastor, I've conducted funerals and committed bodies to the grave. As a medical doctor, I've cared for people in their dying days and certified numerous deaths. I know that once a body is truly dead, there's no way known to science to bring life back to it. Like everything else in this universe, as science tells us, it will start to decay. In the natural run of things, resurrection does not and cannot happen. So if I heard that someone had come back from the dead today, I'd probably dismiss it as fake news or fantasy. But I believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And I'm not talking about a ghostly apparition or a hallucination, but a living, breathing body. So have I just thrown my learning out the window? Does science not prove that miracles can't happen? Well, no. Science does not and cannot disprove the possibility of miracles. Science doesn't actually tell us what is possible. It just tries to explain what we observe in nature, and it does that really effectively. But science can only tell us about physical things that can be measured and observed. It can't tell us whether non-physical things like God or the human soul exist. It can tell us when a body is dead, but it can't tell us where the person has gone from that lifeless shell. Indeed, I think nature and experience point beyond themselves to a creator. Why would science work if no one designed order in nature or in the brains we use to understand it? And science cannot tell us if miracles are possible or if they have happened, because it's only good at studying what regularly happens in nature. By definition, miracles don't regularly happen. They aren't normally predictable, and they can't be tested by experiments. If God, the creator of nature, exists, he could surely do supernatural things beyond nature if he decides, and we can't control that. So science does not and cannot disprove the existence of God or the possibility of miracles. And science does not and cannot disprove the resurrection of Jesus. We can't go back in a time machine and observe what happened. And we can't perform an experiment to see if he could have risen again, because we can't recreate the circumstances of Jesus' life and death or manipulate God's actions. If we want to decide whether Jesus rose again, science won't help us. But the eyewitness accounts of the Bible will. Those accounts say that Jesus claimed to reveal the truth about non-physical realities. He claimed to come from God, to be one with God, and to be able to bring us to God. And those accounts also say that Jesus performed miracles that amazed people, just as they would amaze us. Supernatural acts within nature that showed divine authority over nature. His miracles were supernatural. They went beyond what naturally happens, but they didn't fundamentally change nature. Even when Jesus brought his friend Lazarus back from the dead, he merely reversed decay and death temporarily. Lazarus's soul returned to a mended body, but the normal rules of nature, as described by science, kept working. Lazarus eventually died again and his body decayed. But the resurrection of Jesus was a greater kind of miracle. God didn't simply override nature temporarily when he raised Jesus. Jesus' resurrection body was physical, but he wasn't subject to the normal workings of nature. He could be touched, he could eat, but his body couldn't die or decay. He still lives in that body outside nature and will return in it one day. Christians believe Jesus' resurrection was the beginning of a new creation, free from the decay that nature is subject to now. A new creation that will be complete when Jesus returns. And if Jesus really rose, the biggest question facing us today is how we can be part of that new creation. Jesus said we can only be part of it by trusting in him who died to free us from sin and death. He promised that those who believe in him will be raised like him to eternal life when he returns. So resurrection is not possible in nature as science describes it now, but it is possible by the supernatural power of God. Jesus rose, and we can rise if we trust in him.